Well, good morning. Some have dubbed this time of year the season of giving. There's no question that it's a time of great need. We'll talk about that this morning, and as we continue to celebrate TV6's 60th anniversary, we'll look into the Ryan Report archives for a visit with one of the familiar faces from the early days. It all starts right now.
From TV6, this is the Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, it is the season of giving. It's a season when many of us spend a lot of our time and treasure trying to find gifts for friends and family. Oftentimes, it's a difficult challenge because the people we're trying to buy things for already have everything they need. But that's not true for everyone. As you go about your holiday shopping this year, remember there are people who will only have a very Merry Christmas because of your generosity and the efforts of people like our guest this morning. Joining us today is Captain Doug Winters. He and his wife are the officers in charge of the Marquette and Ishpeming Salvation Army. Captain Winters, welcome to the Ryan Report.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Don.
Great to have you with us.
Thanks.
You're fairly new to the area. You and your wife came here this summer, I believe?
Yeah, just at the end of June, so we've been here a little bit over 4 months, just loving it up here.
And they put you in charge of both the Ishpeming and Marquette units, which is a change from the past.
That's new for the Salvation Army here, yes. They thought that a little bit better coordination would happen if both the church in Ishpeming and Marquette were under the same leadership.
And I understand you have some planning going on now to see how you can best serve the needs of the area?
Yeah, we've started a mission planning study, and so we've had a consultant in for a couple of weeks now. He's coming in for one more week and coming up with some recommendations. What are the needs for the Salvation Army in the county? What are the gaps in the county, services that maybe are unmet today, and also looking at duplication of efforts as well, and how could we focus our efforts for the greater good in Marquette County.
Okay. I know, back to you and your wife, you both had extensive careers in other fields before getting involved with the Army, right?
Yeah, I'm an analytical chemist by trade. I have a master's degree in analytical chemistry, and 35 years in that industry, working behind the bench in the laboratory and also running testing businesses. It was about a year ago that got the knock on my heart from God that, there's something different that I want you to do. And so my wife and I talked a lot about it, prayed about it, and that led to us having a career now with the Salvation Army.
And so this was a different approach to becoming a Salvation Army officer too, I understand.
Yeah, most the traditional path is to go to seminary class, and that's a 2-year program in the Salvation Army, usually following a bachelor's degree, and then 2 years of extensive study and then moving into ministry. For us, they asked us to just step in, and so we're doing our seminary classes as we go here over the next 5 years.
But I understand you had some real history with the Salvation Army.
You know, both my wife and I are kids of Salvation Army pastors, and so we grew up in the Salvation Army. We've attended the Salvation Army as our church our whole life, been marginally involved in some of the social service programs, but being thrown right into the thick of it right away here.
And so you're now the officer in charge of the Salvation Army at what has to be one of the most challenging and perhaps most rewarding times of the year?
Oh, absolutely. This time of year really drives our efforts for the entire year. The money that we raise in the Christmas season really defines what kind of programs we can have for the rest of the year. But there's also so much time of service right now with the Thanksgiving dinner that we just accomplished, and then moving forward into Christmas season.
Can you characterize the need at all? I know there's a tremendous need out there for support for people with help at this time of year.
In this community especially, we're seeing the need with the situation with the mines and just overall with the economy. We've seen an uptick in both of our food pantries, both in Ishpeming and Marquette, people needing more assistance right now.
And of course that brings us to the TV6 Canathon, which is a big event still going on, and that has to be a big help, not just for your organization, but for many others.
Absolutely. What a great effort. And that, I've looked at some of the history of that, and just been going on for years and years, and helping the community. It certainly helps the Salvation Army. So we use that material. That'll carry us over for 3 or 4 months. So we stack up the cans that are collected and use that both in the food pantries, both pantries, as well as the feeding programs that we have at both locations.
You know, and I think it really helps to get the message out too. You know, there's kids in school get involved. There are special events in the community. There are, you know, there are all kinds of projects going on. We have partners that work with us on this project. So, you know, I think it also helps, as I say, to get the word out.
It does help train our youth to get them involved in things like the Canathon, even on things like bell ringing, getting the youth involved and helping them understand that life can be bigger and more fulfilling if you're helping other people.
You know, that bell ringing has to be a huge project. I know you try to get volunteers to make that work, but how is that working out?
We actually need more volunteers, and I'm glad you asked. We can never fill all of our kettle locations with only volunteers, and so we're constantly looking for people to come help. Again, it's a good chance with the kids, parents out there with their kids, understanding why we're raising the money and what the money goes for.
And I know you get some organizations helping out, maybe some service clubs or some businesses that kind of volunteer as groups to help out?
Almost all of the service clubs in town have volunteered to take a day or even a couple days. Some of them have a Friday and a Saturday where they want to cover all of our kettle locations. We've had a couple of the realtor groups as well reach out and ask if they could be involved.
And what's the best way for people to make contact?
Yeah, just call either of our offices in Ishpeming or Marquette. The number in Marquette is 226-2241, excuse me, 226-2241, and we'll get you hooked up and allocate a time for you to ring.
Okay, we've got some more questions, but
Yeah.
first we have to take a break. Back with more on the Ryan Report in just a couple of minutes. Again, our guest this morning is Captain Doug Winters from the Salvation Army facilities in Ishpeming and Marquette. We should mention there are other Salvation Army offices in other areas of the UP that are also out doing the same thing, I'm sure. Absolutely.
There's an office in Hancock-Houghton area, one down in Escanaba, and a service extension down in Iron Mountain. So, Sault Ste. Marie as well. Don't want to forget them. But yeah.
You know, it's important that kids have a Christmas, and that would not happen in many cases without the help of generous people out there. You have a program I know you're working on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the Mining Journal has done a nice job of collecting toys every year, and that also with other donations that we receive from individuals who just stop by and drop toys off at our locations. The big toy dropper, where parents can come to pick up toys for their children, December 21st in Ishpeming and December 22nd in Marquette. And so we would plan to have basically a toy shop, a whole store set up where parents can pick out the toy that they want for their kid or toys for their children.
Almost like a Santa's workshop.
Absolutely, yeah, very much so. To do that, you have to register ahead of time so we know that we'll have enough toys and we know who the parents are. There's a registration process for that, and in Ishpeming, we need to complete that process by December 1st, and so they'd have to drop in the office there in Ishpeming to register themselves and register their kids. Okay. And then in Marquette, that date is December 14th, that we would need to have them come in.
Well, back to the fundraising, I know you also do some direct mail appeals as well for fundraising. Do those funds all stay here to help people here?
They do. The majority of those funds. Now, we do pay a small amount to our office in Milwaukee. That's for administration costs. That's generally less than 10%. But I can tell you over the last 2 years, more money has come back into the community than what we've paid out through grants. The Salvation Army in Milwaukee has been very generous to help support us up here because of the need that's here. So more money has flowed into the community than has flowed out over the last 2 years.
I know also that when there's a local disaster, and it doesn't have to rise to the level of a disaster, I guess, but the Salvation Army is often there to help out. And And you now have a mobile canteen that help make that process work.
We do. The last time this mobile kitchen was used, we call it a canteen. The last time the canteen was used was during the wildfires that we had up here in the UP, and it's remained parked for a while, mainly because of funding. But again, the Milwaukee office has come through with some monies to help us rebuild the generator. Pomps Tire has helped us out with a fantastic discount on tires. We needed to replace the tires on the kitchen. Otavera Properties has stepped in with a heated garage that we can park this unit in. It's a very valuable unit, about $150,000 to set up this unit. But it's ready to go. We've got 18 trained volunteers now, both in the Marquette, Ishpeming area as well as up in Hancock. And so we can deploy on a moment's notice, whether it's just to support firemen who are at an extended stay on a fire, or if there were to be some disaster.
It's just so many occasions when the Salvation Army is there to help people, and that's what's so important.
That is, and we're a faith-based organization. We do that because of our love for God, and we feel that that's our calling in life, is to be God's hands to the community.
We have just less than a minute left, but
yeah.
What would you say to our audience to tell them how important their support is?
You know, I think we mentioned it earlier that the funds that we raise right now during the Christmas season really define the programs that we can do for the entire year, and the support that we get from the folks here. I got to tell you, Don, I've never lived in a community where I've seen so much giving and so much support, but the funds that we get this time of year really sustain us for the whole year and help us build more and more efficient programs.
Okay, thanks very much for coming in this morning.
It's been great. Thank you.
Hopefully it turns out to be a great first Christmas season for you in Upper Michigan.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I'll be back with a look into the past after we take this break. Well, our TV6 60th anniversary is rapidly flying by, so this morning I'd like to share one more memory. Today we look back at the original TV6 Kids Show, which featured a character named Darby 06. I sat down with Darby, also known as Roy Peterson, 10 years ago as part of our 50th anniversary celebration. This morning, we delve into the Ryan Report archives for part of that conversation. The last time I saw you was 40 years ago, so the mental picture I have of you is Darby 06.
Thank you.
And when we met a short time ago, you still look like Darby 06. Now, we have a picture, if we can call that up on the screen right now. People can see. Here it is. It's one of your Darby 06 pictures. I think that's Barney Bear on your shoulder. But that was the black vest, the black derby hat, and the 6 on the front. That was Darby 06. And boy, I'll tell you, other than the glasses, you look like the same guy.
Well, thank you. Yes. Once again, the rewards of the medical profession or something. I don't know what that was. But I did work in healthcare after I left here, and education. So in a way, although a lot of my interest with kids came out of this show, I stayed very close to children, working in education, and then serving as eventually a CEO of Mount Children's Health Center down in the Flint area, and becoming very involved in child advocacy, not only at the state level but at the national level.
It's hard to believe it all started here.
Well, you know,
as Darby 06.
In a real way, it spurred my interest in kids and the fact that kids needed a voice.
Now, we have to appreciate that most of our audience doesn't know much about Darby 06, if anything. Tell us a little bit about what the show was.
Well, basically, it was a show that tried to involve children and families in a way that entertained them, maybe marginally taught them some things about values or how to live or how not to live, for that matter. But tried to entertain them, and occasionally, however, Don, I'd have to say that it became sort of an adult children's program as well. Sure. You know, as those things happen, because it was a live television block that, like it or not, once a day, 5 days a week, for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, there would be a live spot playing out on television. So if you had a circus in town, you'd have circus entertainers. If you had a mother bear killed on US 41, the Cubs might show up on the show, or trout as they're growing DNR, and others would be part of this show. So it was interactive from that standpoint, and informative as well, I would say, to children, as well as, I would hope, a couple of adults too.
Did you have some help in putting the ideas parts together? Obviously there were technical people behind the scenes.
When I look at what you folks are doing today in broadcasting television, it's a different ball game. We played a lot of this totally by ear, and sometimes it came off brilliantly. Oftentimes it was more careening from curb to curb down the video way of life there.
You know, and you said live, and that's a very important factor, because it's obviously our newscasts are live,
right,
but not many programs in television are live. And when you work elements like kids and unscripting, and that really had to be something.
Well, when you called and asked whether I had any video of the show, I laughed. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think video was
we hadn't invented
it. Invented yet. Yeah. But so from that standpoint, it was very spontaneous, and when it went over the air, I mean, if it was bad, it was bad.
No taking it back.
There's no taking it back.
Yeah.
There's sometimes I wanted to. Mm-hmm.
There's a book I happened to run across online. It's called Hi There, Boys and Girls, and this author has really tracked down all the different shows of that genre, I guess you could say. And there were literally hundreds, and your show is mentioned in here. But the author makes the point that much of television programming really grew out of radio programming. Every radio station had a kids show. About that time, every television station had a kids show, and then of course your show was that example.
Well, it was one of those deals where the story was that we didn't have a children's program, evidently, if that was the thing to do at the time. The station management felt that it was necessary. Station manager came down to the floor here, to the studio floor where I was running camera, and said, we're going to have a children's program. We'd like you to do it. And that was on a Thursday, and I said, well, I've never done anything like that before. And no, this is going to work out pretty well. And I said, well, when does this start? Monday, and that was it. And we had some cartoons to fill some time. And then we generated certain features. I'm putting features in quotes, believe me. But things like a birthday book where kids would hear their name on television, and then we started with guests where kids would come in with their friends, or a scout group, or a church group, or whatever. So it was a way to have audience participation and involvement. And when you've got kids around, you're not going to go too far wrong.
Were you able to do other things here at TV6 as well?
I did weather for about a year.
You were like me, you played a meteorologist.
Yeah, I played a meteorologist, that's correct. And I did some sports here and there, and it was a different time, you know, where you did what you had to do and just filled in. But it is where I learned how to pour beer. Once again, live television.
Live on TV.
And I recall pretty clearly pouring a glass of beer and the head coming over the top and running down my hand, and there's nothing you're going to do besides keep on going.
Live TV.
Sharing some memories with Roy Peterson, a.k.a. Darby 06. They were different times, and a lot has changed since then, but it was fun to be there. I'll be back after this break. Well, we made it through another Thanksgiving. From fairly humble beginnings many years ago, it's become one of the biggest weeks of the year for self-gratification. It begins with a Thanksgiving feast where we devour a meal that typically includes so much more than we really need, which means a lot of us leave the table loosening our belts to make room for all the calories we just consumed. Typically we have a lot of choices, but for me, the basics are turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, and rutabaga, all smothered in gravy. Top it off with a piece of pumpkin pie. That's all I need. Excuse me if I start to drool just thinking about it. Then we waddle to the living room or wherever we do our TV watching and spend hours in front of the TV screen watching football, which is on from morning until late at night. And of course, for those who aren't football fans, there are parades, Thanksgiving editions of our favorite TV shows, and somewhere Charlie Brown will be hosting his Thanksgiving dinner. But Thanksgiving Day is just part of it. This was also the week when a lot of people went on a shopping spree and a spending spree as the merchants attracted us with the annual Black Friday deals. As I said at the top of the show, it's a season when many of us spend a lot of our time and treasure looking for gifts for friends and family, which is a difficult challenge because the people we're buying for already have everything they need. But as we look back on the Thanksgiving holiday, it's important to remember that the day I just described wasn't that way for everyone. Some did not sit down to a fancy dinner. Some won't be spending money for expensive gifts. Some kids will wake up on Christmas morning to find out that Santa Claus forgot them. At least that's the way it will be unless some of us take the time and make the effort to help those in need. As we learned from our guest this morning, the Salvation Army is working hard to provide that help. There are other organizations and churches who are also working hard to do their part. They're ready to help, but they can't do it without a lot of help from you and I. To quote a verse from Proverbs chapter 22, "The generous will themselves be blessed, for they share their food with the poor." The TV6 Canathon is just one way you can help, but there are others if you're willing to help make this holiday season a little brighter for someone in need. And as we close out this week, take a moment to think about the things we have to be thankful for. Not the turkey and the gifts, but the things that are really important in our life. Hopefully you discover that you have more to be thankful for than you even realized. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Time to wrap it up for another week. By the time next Sunday morning rolls around, it will be December. Thanks to Captain Winters for joining us this morning. He had an important message that I hope we all take to heart. Keep in mind that you can also watch us on the internet. You'll find us at uppermichigansource.com. A good place to also find the latest news, sports, and weather 24 hours a day. The Today Show is coming up next. Thanks for joining us this morning, and I look forward to seeing you again next Sunday morning.